Hey, welcome back, wrestling fans, to Revisiting the Mania, a WrestleMania rewatch podcast. I'm Carlos,
And I'm Maria.
and there's something magical about revisiting the spectacle that is WrestleMania X-8. We and our guest Dre from podcast Championship Wrestling will step into the time machine and transport back to the year 2002, a period that marked a pivotal event or in the world of sports entertainment.
WrestleMania X-8, some people say 18, was held at the iconic Sky Dome in Toronto, Canada, promised a night of unforgettable moments, epic clashes, and the kind of sports entertainment moments that will linger in the memories of fans for years to come.
So let's get into it. Dre, introduce yourself to the people. What was your first introduction to wrestling? Was it a WrestleMania?
For me personally, actually was my WrestleMania my wrestling introduction came in the '80s.
Okay.
Before I even became a fan of WWF wrestling, I started out actually with WCW and NWA.
Okay.
Given out here in Virginia, so that was much more popular than WWF wrestling, which was really big up north. So NWA, W, that's what come on the Turner Network, so PBS back in the day. So that's was I started off with wrestling.
Got
And
it.
then eventually, like in the '90s, Monday Night Wars, that kind of transitioned back and forth, like watching Nitro moment, watching Raw, flipping the channels back and forth. So
Okay.
then eventually, obviously, WCW fell off. Just like everybody else transitioned over to WWF.
You've been watching wrestling for a long time, you said, since the 80s. Who are some of your favorite wrestlers?
Let's see, my favorite wrestler of all time is Sting. That's the guy who made me a fan ever since probably the first Clash of Champions when he took on Ric Flair in the Iron Man match.
Mm.
So he's my favorite wrestler of all time. My number two would be The Rock.
Nice.
Outside of that, see some other favorites from back in the day or through maybe through now per se, but really most guys back in the day that I was a big fan of outside of Sting were guys like Lex Luger, Road Warriors, a lot of those big WCW, NWA guys from back in the day. Dusty Rhodes, I was a big fan of. Steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
WWF guys, again, I was aware of them back then, but didn't follow that product as consistently as I followed WCW. So yeah, I knew of Hogan, I knew of Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake, and all those guys.
Right.
But like I said, didn't really follow them enough to be a diehard fan of them like I was the WCW and NWA guys.
So he was like the opposite. You were like Bizarro Carlos, because it was like, to me, it was the opposite. And when we went to go see the Iron Claw, she's like, "How much did you know about the Von Erichs and everything?" And I was like, "I did not know that much, just like of tidbits that I've read here and there, but I had never seen any of the matches that are being brought up in that movie." And now it made me like kind of interested in seeing more of those matches. They came from world class championship wrestling and a whole part of the National Wrestling Alliance.
Well, now that Dre is talking about that Ric Flair and Sting match, that was actually recommended to me by one of my coworkers, so I definitely need to watch it. It must be pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was the match that put Sting on the map. It was the very first Clash of Champions, which I believe aired at the same time or around the same time as the first WrestleMania, or maybe one of the WrestleManias. Because back at that time when Vince was really trying to establish that national dominance,
Right.
he was using some strong arm tactics with a lot of the cable providers and all that stuff, and basically telling them that if they aired any NWA or WCW stuff, that they would basically be locked out of airing of seeing or getting into WrestleMania content. So Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, and all that stuff, they basically countered by saying, fine. If you're going to block all these people from or prevent them from airing our pay-per-view, which WWF's big thing was WrestleMania. And NWA and WCW, their quote unquote WrestleMania product, granddaddy of them all, Start made. And that aired in November as opposed to WrestleMania, which was in April. So WCW countered WWF's move of having WrestleMania on view by saying, all right, we're gonna have a major show, call it the Clash of Champions, and we're gonna put it on network television for free.
Wow.
As opposed to making people pay for it.
Pay-per-view, right?
Exactly. So that's how the Clash of Champions came about. And they aired for free on TV. Main event was Sting, this popular baby face, a new guy up and coming, taking on Ric Flair, who was the established champion, the man in the company at the time, in an hour-long Iron Man match. And Flair made him like $1 million, and from there, Sting pretty much became one of the top faces in the company, and the rest was history for him.
Yeah, that's definitely in my list. I have a post-it note with their names, but it's gonna have to be a rewatch for me so I can see that. I didn't know that it was a free show either, so well.
I mean, well, it's free now too because we just have to have the internet, but back then it was probably like a great treat as compared to whatever closed circuit television would have costed for a show like WrestleMania or anything else like a boxing match.
Exactly.
So the buy rate for this WrestleMania was $860,000. So they were making millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's a lot of money when you like factor in. It was either, I don't remember if they had the HD feed. They would actually start separating the buy rates for like regular TV was $49.95. And if you wanted HD, because that was the new hot technology.
Was HD?
Yeah. So
I don't think it kicked in this one yet.
Yeah.
Because I actually have the DVD for this one.
Okay.
And it was still rendered regular standard definition. I think HD kicked in maybe 19 or 20. I think might have been one.
Okay, so the next either. Okay.
Yeah.
High definition television.
Yeah.
Buy it. So the tagline for this one is Icon versus Icon, the absolute best ever, the one and only.
But they're talking about Ricochet? That's his tagline, the one and only. Yeah. So we had Icon versus Icon, but it wasn't the main event. I know like they probably like really regret not doing that as the main event. You have that on the poster, you have that in the tagline, and yet you're like, let's put this match the third from the last. So not the penultimate, because you need that one match to give it a buffer so people can go pee, go do whatever they need to do before the main event.
Right.
But you're like, good luck, ladies, and basically whoever else is going on after that, because the crowd, in my opinion, should have just went home after that match.
Absolutely. But Vince had this thing at the time where the WWF Championship was the biggest prize in wrestling, so it should have been the main event. So he was dead set on putting that as the last match. Which okay, fine. If you want to do that, so be it. I get the logic behind it, even if I disagree with it. Because it's not like Vince hasn't done it in the past. Had a non-title match as the main event. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was WrestleMania 10 that was main evented by Lawrence Taylor versus Bam Bigelow.
I think that was 11.
Maybe 11. One of those.
But no, I know what you're talking about. Like even with this one, WrestleMania 8, it was. I don't remember who the main event was. I know it was Hulk Hogan. Oh, Hulk Hogan versus Lex Luger. That was the main event. But the World Championship title was kind of like mid card in this WrestleMania 8 pay per view because it was Randy Macho Man Savage versus Ric Flair.
Macho Savage and Flair, yeah, was the title match. 8. That was. It might have been 7. I think 8 was Hogan versus Slaughter.
Was it?
Might have been. I know which one you're talking about. I know you're talking about that Savage and Flair.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't the main event. It was another match that was featured.
Yeah. I know it was Hogan and Sid Justice.
7 was Hulk Hogan and Slaughter as the main event.
And then
okay.
Yeah, then 8 was Hogan and Sid Justice because that's because that's when they had betrayed or Sid had turned his back on Hogan or something like that.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, there's precedent for the world title match not being the main event. And if ever there was a WrestleMania that warranted that, it was this one with Rock and Hogan.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Do you have anything else before we start?
No, that's it. I'm ready to get into it.
All right. The first match we have is for the Intercontinental title. Rob Van Dam versus William Regal. Pretty. This is your first introduction to RVD?
Mm-hmm.
And you saw William Regal in the previous pay-per-view? Who were you rooting for?
What happened?
I said, who were you rooting for?
Who was I rooting for? I was rooting for Rob Van Dam. We see some really excellent moves. He finishes with the signature move, a 5-star off the turnbuckle. I really enjoyed watching him wrestle. I will admit that I did have to watch this twice.
Okay.
Just to get a good feel of what his wrestling is like versus William Regal. Who were you rooting for?
I think in this one I would have been doing Rob Van Dam too. What about you, Dre?
Yeah. Much as I appreciated Regal and his skills as a wrestler, Rob Van Dam's also one of my favorites. So I was absolutely rooting for him. I've always loved his 5-star frog splash. I think he has the best frog splash in the business out of anybody. So yeah, I was definitely a huge RVD fan.
I always like the way he sells it when he lands because it makes you feel like he really did come in contact with the opponent that's laying down. So
the fans love this
put
match.
that extra on it.
Yeah,
he did put that extra sauce because I loved it. I was looking at the fans; they loved it. I thought it was just a really good match. They did really well. They worked really well with each other.
Yeah, for the 6-minute, 22-minute match or 22-second match, it was a good getting people into the mood, picking people up and getting them invested into this pay-per-view. So would you recommend this match? Is there anything?
I enjoyed watching this match, but I will admit it wasn't one of my favorites. We get a chance to see technical wrestling, high-flying wrestling from Rob Van Dam, but I thought it was just okay. Dre, what do you think?
I mostly agree with you. As a starter match, it was a good match to get the crowd hyped. You put a favorite out there like Rob Van Dam. You give him the win. You showcase his arsenal moves. You put him in the ring with somebody as a skilled technical wrestler like William Regal, who can pretty much pull a good match out of damn near anybody except for early Goldberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody's seen that match that Regal had with Goldberg back in WCW, they know he's good. He ain't good enough to pull a great match out of Goldberg, but him and RVD definitely worked together in that ring, and it was a great match to again start the crowd, get them hyped up, and have them on a positive note going into the rest of the show.
All right. Would you recommend that people revisit this match or?
This one, if you just see Rob Van Dam in his WrestleMania debut, then sure. But other than that, you can probably skip this one. Like you're not missing anything monumental or anything critical by not watching this. It's just a good decent opening match.
All right. That's also like not a recommended match for me. So I think we all agree you can skip it. But if you want to see RVD making his big splash at the WrestleMania arena, go ahead and give this match a watch. The next match we have is another introduction. Diamond Dallas Page, DDP.
DDP?
Yeah, versus Christian at last. He's on his own.
I forgot all about that song.
I love that theme song. It goes for 6 minutes and 10 seconds.
The theme song?
No, this match. So, Maria, DDP, first thoughts?
I love it. I really enjoyed watching this match.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Diamond Dallas Page, DDP. Also, I enjoyed watching Christian wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming you like this match?
I love Christian. I was rooting for Christian.
Yeah.
You were rooting for DDP, I'm safe to assume. I know everyone's a big Edge head. Between Edge and Christian, like I would say it's split like 70-30. 70% of the people will go to Edge, 30% of the people will go to Christian.
Right.
I'm in the minority. I've always loved Christian. When he went on his own and he came out with this theme song, it sounded pretty corny, but I love it.
Okay. And Dre?
Yeah, he's right with that as far as that Edge and Christian split, because Edge was obviously the bigger star. But if you were to compare just their wrestling ability and probably natural talent, Christian is probably much better than Edge. Edge just has that it factor and that charisma that just won him over. That's not to say that he wasn't an excellent for himself and obviously great on all that other stuff. He has that as well. But I think his own natural charisma made it easier for him as opposed to somebody like Christian who had to work much harder at his craft to be as good as what he is, what he was and still is to this day. So that kind of endears Christian to me a little more than Edge. Now in regards to match itself, I was all DDP because DDP is an old WCW guy. So my heart was with DDP in this one. This match itself was a bit bittersweet to me, just because one it's DDP's only WrestleMania match. One of the only matches he had period in WWE. His running in the WWE was very lackluster for the caliber of performer that he is, especially the pedigree that he brought from WCW. He was really much underutilized.
Wow.
So my heart was with DDP in this one. I'm glad that he won the match. But at the same time, just seeing this, like, damn, they could have done so much more with him. He deserves so much more in WWE.
Right.
And that entrance theme that he had was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
What, the intro?
The entrance to DDP.
Christian's was good. Christian's was nice and nostalgic.
I thought so too.
Yeah. He is an old D guy. I'm used to when he was in WCW, and he used to come out to Nirvana smells like Spirit.
Okay.
Or here's some bootleg version of it, like Muzak type of thing, I believe. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It wasn't the whole actual song itself. It was just the instrumental. They would come out to.
I like you said, I like Christian's intro, although when he first walks out, he's like super squinty, and when he's getting interviewed, I wonder if he has astigmatism. But they had so many flashing lights during the interview.
Yeah, it's amazing because you don't see that now. You have like all the cameras and flash bulbs, like when there was a good like spot or someone's coming out for their entrance, or like well, we'll see later on if Stacy Keibler is going out there and showing off her ass. It's all like flash, 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 flash.
Right.
So.
And then we get a crunchy gut wrench with DDP. I thought that was a great spot. And I'm rooting for Christian. He gets a near fall. I'm excited. But then DDP pulls out a diamond cutter and I'm surprised. But I'm satisfied with the win. What do you guys think about this match?
This match was a good standard match. To me, it's like nothing of it said it was special besides DDP making his first WrestleMania appearance. This would have been like a match you probably would have seen like a Monday Night Raw or a SmackDown, especially with the length being 6 minutes and 10 seconds. You expected them to give, and I would have loved for them to have more time, but they didn't get it. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. This is very much a product of what WWF was back then, where they would just load the card up with a bunch of matches, and how much time you got was very much dependent on what your status or what was the company. Obviously, bigger names got longer matches, more time to cook. Some of the undercard guys got shorter matches, didn't have as much time. Even if they were great wrestlers and could have pulled off a great match had they had time to work. Right. Just because they didn't have that star power, star power. Just because they weren't high up on the totem pole per se, they didn't get time to cook. Because I promise EDP, even at this in his career, Christian could have had a phenomenal match. If they would have given them like 15, 20 minutes. Wow. They could have had a great match. But when you only give them six, then you can only expect so much out of them. So yeah, the match itself was just so like you said, it's pretty much television quality. But you got to at least see them on the card. They got the WrestleMania check.
Yeah. And I agree with you. They have a few good spots during this match. I enjoyed those spots, but is it a revisit for me? No, I actually would not recommend that you rewatch this.
Yeah, I'm also aboard that you do not revisit train, not because it's a bad match, just because it's like they had some potential with the two guys that are in here working. Mm-hmm. Like DDP was hot, he's a hot face. Mm-hmm. Christian doing his best heel work to get DDP over and get him that push with the crowd, and it just had to be kind of shortened up and didn't get more of the psychology to actually work out a little bit more. It all had to be done before this on the road to WrestleMania for them to have a reason for the feud and have that beef and essentially kind of quote unquote have it squashed by the end of this match.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to see DDP at his best, then I would suggest go back through his WCW catalog. If you want to see Christian at his best, you could either check out some of his stuff from when he was with Edge tag team, or catch stuff from more recent times in his career, where he's like perfected his craft. This is neither one of them at their best because they weren't given enough time to cook.
Mm-hmm. So
with that one, it takes us to the third match on the card, the hardcore title, Maven versus Goldust. This match technically goes for 3 minutes and 17 seconds, but it kind of gets dragged out throughout this whole pay-per-view card. Now, this is your first introduction to Maven.
Yes.
And Goldust. I know you've been a fan of Goldust before.
Yeah, I like to see Goldust.
Do you know where Maven came from and this whole...
No, tell me more.
Well, there isn't that much to delve into.
Okay.
This is when WWE or F now E is partnered up with MTV. Mm-hmm. So they come out with a reality show.
Right.
And they get either 12 or 16 competitors in this competition. Mm-hmm. And if you win in the end of the competition, of the reality show, then they offer you a WWE contract.
Oh, wow.
And Maven is the one that ends up winning out of this.
Oh, I had no idea. That's pretty cool.
Yep, the first ever stuff they did.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was it like a series or?
It was a series for at least, I want to say 5 or 6 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that they had 5 or 6 different wrestlers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
because I think in
the first season they had one men's and one women's winner. And Maven was the male winner. I think the women's winner was it Nydia?
I think it was Nydia.
Yeah. It was Nydia who won for women. And then it continued for a few more seasons. I think it went away for a while. Then they tried to bring it back, and I think it was not quite as successful. But it still maintains the same general premise. Let me see. Aspiring wrestlers were competing on the show, and the winners got offered WWE contracts for at least a year.
Wow, a year.
It's better than nothing.
It is.
And then if you hit it off, then that's better for you and better for Vince.
Right.
Maven is actually have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Where he describes like how much money he made, either from pay-per-views and like the different contracts they offered,
right,
and like a day-to-day life, like what time he has to get to the arena, what when they would give him updates on what to do and things like that.
That's pretty cool. And so during this time, WWF goes to WWE, right?
No, it's after this.
Is it like right after?
It's
shortly after.
It's like in May. May.
Yeah. This is
they lose that
WWF
lawsuit.
WrestleMania because they had a lawsuit with the World Wildlife Fund over the acronym WWF. Which was ridiculous because clearly everybody associates WWF with the World Wrestling Federation and not the World Wildlife Fund.
Mm-hmm.
But WWF was in their attitude era, and they were seen as edgy and not family friendly. Meanwhile, World Wildlife Fund is out here saving pandas. So they won the lawsuit. They got the rights to the acronym of WWF, which forced WWE to change from F to E, and they launched a campaign shortly after called "Get the F Out."
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. Wow.
Yeah. So the Maven is the hardcore champion facing off Goldust.
Right.
And right in the middle of it, Spike Dudley comes in, runs in, and gives him the running bulldog. He wins the title. Yeah. And then the chase is on, and he runs away from Hardcore Holly and everyone else who's giving chase for that hardcore championship because it's still under the 24/7 rule, and I guess they didn't lift that rule for this match. Normally the ref or somebody says that the 24/7 rule is not in effect,
right,
and that it's just going to be a one-on-one match, but that announcement is never made, and that's why Spike is able to come in, give that guy the running bulldog, and run off with the title.
I enjoy hearing that. I think it's a good storyline. What do you think about it?
It was fun. Like the match itself was obviously nothing special. It was kind of a throwaway. But just the fact that they just put that 24/7 rule in effect for during the show and kept refs back to it throughout the show with the title changing hands. Just made like a fun ongoing storyline throughout the whole show.
Right. And Hardcore Holly should be included in a hardcore match.
Yeah, I mean his name is his moniker, his hardcore moniker is in it, so why wouldn't he be included? But I did not like this. Like I've recommended hardcore title matches in the past, but this is also like the second Mania in a row where I think like the 24/7 rule has basically like taken the joy out of seeing the hardcore title for me.
The last one we saw had the Big Show, right?
Yeah, it was the 3-way with the Big Show, Kane, and Raven.
Okay. That was okay for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This wasn't a rewatch for me, even with all of the additional shenanigans. I definitely appreciate that 24/7 rule. That's like 24/7 anywhere, anytime. But this is kind of a pass for me. What about you, Dre? What'd you think?
I'm in full agreement with you. This is pretty much forgettable. It's a little fun, it's entertaining, but for hardcore, it's just completely throwaway.
And this is hard for me because I like to go into these WrestleManias like rev to see exciting matches. So for me to have so many passes early on, I have to say I was surprised.
Yeah,
This show's kind of very top heavy. Like there's certain matches on there that are purely the showcase matches, and the rest of them were just more or less filler.
Yes.
And so
Same sentiments.
yeah, with this match, we can go ahead and skip it.
We thought this was trash, like the trash cans that Goldust brought in.
It was a nice touch that they were actually gold.
Yeah,
They were.
yeah, but it's just like I feel like it's more a distraction now. Because you have this match and you're expecting a hardcore match, and it's not really that much hardcore. It's like, let me just come in and sneak in and do a roll up schoolboy pin, or let me just hit you randomly when you're not looking, and that's it. You know, there's nothing hardcore about it.
And I enjoy seeing Goldust wrestle, so yeah, it was just one of those matches.
Yeah, Goldust has always been a phenomenal performer. Dustin Runnels, he's he's an OG too. I first discovered him in WCW when he was just Dustin Rhodes, obviously son of Dustin. So yeah, I watched him back then, and then he's in WWF Goldust, and a character that very few people could make work, and yet he absolutely made it work in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So with that, we move on to the fourth match on the card. The Olympic hero, Kurt Angle versus Kane. This match goes for 10 minutes and 45 seconds. Maria, I know you're a fan of Kane. Were you, and you're also a fan of Kurt Angle?
I'm a big fan of Kurt Angle.
Who were you rooting for?
Not an obtuse angle, not an acute angle, a Kurt Angle.
Yeah, me too. I would have been rooting for Kurt Angle back then, and when I was watching it live, and right now, Dre.
Oh yeah, definitely. Kurt Angle is one of my favorite wrestlers. This isn't quite prime Kurt Angle, but we're getting close to prime Kurt Angle.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you see the banner here, but we've had Kurt Angle matches for about like 3 Manias.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at this point, he's like the WWE version of Rodney Dangerfield. He gets no respect.
Aww.
He did have like one borderline recommended match for me where he faced off with Chris Benoit.
Right.
But I think that suffered of the not enough time for it to cook. And that match, I think, deserved more time, and it just didn't get it.
Yeah.
That was 17, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite matches and was a rewatch of WrestleMania 17. I really enjoyed that match with Benoit and Kurt Angle.
Definitely. You're talking about two of the best wrestlers ever. Especially at that time. And put them in a match and you're getting gold every time. Doesn't matter if you give 4 minutes or 40 minutes.
And this is when Kurt Angle is now a heel, and technically Kane is a babyface. So, if there's anything that I loved more about Kurt Angle's work is when he was a heel, because we get like so much like so many like one-liners and characters he comes up with, and it looks like he has fun being the bad guy.
Yeah, he's incredible. Also, he has a strong neck, as
Mm-hmm.
one should if they want an Olympic gold medal to carry it on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have a lot of love for Kurt
Absolutely.
Angle.
Yeah, he does his best work as a heel.
Yeah. So
Jay, what do you think about this match?
I thought this match was good. It did suffer a little bit from being too short, but Kane, not to be underestimated either, is a great worker. And him and Kurt Angle had a very good match. They got the most out of the time that they were given and put on what was at this point probably the best match on the card to this point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree that up to this point, this is a match where, like, if you were at home watching and you've had like a couple of beers, this is where your friends like, "Hey, wake up! Kurt Angle and Kane is on," and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, so the Undertaker's brother, Kane, let's not forget, that's his brother, makes an appearance. For this match, I root for Kane in a pinch, but I'm rooting for Kurt Angle during this match. And during the beginning of this match, I'm all in. The height difference, Kane is like 6'10",
Mm-hmm.
and he is like, what, over 250, 300 pounds. And I like to see the dynamic of those two wrestling, but then it just gets a little wonky for me, and I'm not happy with the end. So, what do you all think?
I do agree with you in that I did not like the end and the fact that Kurt Angle had to cheat to win, given that he's, a guy that I like so much. I like seeing him win clean. But the fact that he did have to cheat to win was like, damn it, Kurt. But at the same time, he's a heel, so it's to be expected of a heel.
Yeah. That's the only reason I don't have a problem with the way he won. It just impressed me, like, that he was able to get like all these German suplexes and I think a side suplex in on Kane, and without any like issues to him or to Kane. So big, Kane is a little bit bigger than Kurt Angle,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to be working that safely and everyone's able to get out of there from what I saw without any type of injuries was good. And it's just this match deserved more time. Kurt Angle deserves not only more time, but he also deserves to have a more of a quality opponent. Like, I know he had that one match with Stone Cold that wasn't like on a WrestleMania, but it should have been. Like, they should have had some of these matches on a WrestleMania. This is supposed to be your Super Bowl, your granddaddy of them all, to take it from them, and they never got to give us that, and I'm kind of disappointed so far.
Sure, but at this point, this is still the Attitude Era, and Kurt Angle is still on the come up. So he's there, he's rising. Obviously, he's a former champion. He's one of the top names, but there's still other guys who are in his way, namely Stone Cold, Rock, and Triple H to a certain extent. So Kurt Angle's time is coming. It's just not quite there yet. He's that guy that you can put him in the ring with anybody and you're going to get a great match, but he's not quite at the point where it's like, okay, he's the guy that we're going to have main eventing. That's coming. Foreshadowing.
Yeah. So, comment from our Facebook live chat, and if you ever get a chance to catch us live, please add your comments. We love interacting with everyone.
Yes.
If you're watching this recorded, then please leave a comment so we can go ahead and interact with you. And if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, any podcast format out there, drop a comment, or you could also shoot us an email at revisiting mania, at gmail.com. So this comment is from Caleb, who says, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's true, Caleb, but that's actually something that belongs to another wrestler that Dre alluded to earlier in his comment.
Who was that?
It's Eddie Guerrero.
Oh,
if you
okay.
need to.
Oh yeah.
So this takes us to the next match, which is a no DQ match.
So we all agreed. It was
Oh,
not
we all
worth
did.
the...
Oh, we didn't say that, right?
Yeah.
Revisit or no?
The Big Red Machine gold medalist Kurt Angle. As excited as I was, it's not a rewatch for me.
Okay. What about you, Dre?
Yeah, I kind of agree. If you're talking about the catalog of Kurt Angle matches, nobody's really thinking about this one. So yeah, this one is one of the better matches on this pay-per-view, but it's not one of the better matches in either one of these guys' careers. So I'd say you could probably pass on this one.
Yeah, and just because I was on the fence with this one, I will also agree. If I was like, and that's what made me think that Kurt Angle right now at this point is the WWE version of Rodney Dangerfield. He gets no respect, in my opinion, up to this point, and he deserves to get some and main event of WrestleMania already. So I know it's coming, but it's still frustrating to me. So moving on to the Undertaker. He's back, and he's still a biker versus Rick Flair, and he's back. Maria, you're a fan of the Undertaker, and you're a fan of Ric Flair. What are you rooting for? Uh-oh.
Okay. I would like to hear your opinions before I talk about this match because it was a bummer for me. So I'm wondering what you guys think about this match.
This 18-minute and 47-second match. What do we think about it?
Yes.
I'll let our guest go first. Dre?
Okay, so this is obviously one of the premier matches of the show, and this was a good match. Like I said before, I have this WrestleMania DVD, so when I used to go back and rewatch this one all the time, this was one of the matches that I would always watch. Like some of the other matches that we talked about before, I would skip past them. This is the first match that I'm pressing play and I'm watching it all the way through because it was a good match, obviously. You got two legends in a ring in a match. Even at this point in their career, when they still had, some road ahead of them, at this point, they're still already legends.
Yeah.
At this point. And this is Undertaker's only his 10th straight WrestleMania. Ric Flair, 16-time champion, really getting back into wrestling after the collapse of WCW because he didn't come over immediately to WWF with the invasion angle. Obviously, he had history in WWF before during the first time he left WCW to go up north. But this is him back, and they didn't bring him back in as a wrestler yet. They brought him back in as co-owner, as if Ric
that was
Flair,
the angle.
Yeah, that was the angle that they had, that Ric Flair was a co-owner, that somebody had bought stake in WWF and they didn't realize who it was, and it was revealed that it was Ric Flair who had bought stake in WWF and was a partner with Vince McMahon in terms of running the show.
That's the kayfabe.
Yeah, that's the kayfabe. Yeah, that didn't really actually happen. No, Ric Flair ain't got that kind of money.
Oh.
That was the kayfabe storyline that it was. And so, seeing Ric Flair back in the ring wrestling is always a good thing to see because at this point, he's an excellent performer. He can still go. Yeah. And even in subsequent interviews since that Ric Flair's given since then, he credits this match as restoring his confidence in his own ability as a wrestler. Wow. Because after, towards the latter years of WCW, during his final years, he wasn't, showcased as much. He was seen as old and outdated and treated like he was just, throwaway and couldn't really go like that anymore. Even though him and Sting had the final match on the final episode ever of WCW Monday Nitro. But, that stuff of him being basically cast aside towards the end of WCW kind of took a toll on his confidence. Right. So he was having a lack of faith in his own ability. But then he has this match with Undertaker at WrestleMania, and they put on, again, a excellent match. Right. And this is what helps restore Ric Flair's confidence in his own ability. And he obviously goes on to wrestle for a number of years past this. And you can see it in the match itself. If you're familiar with Flair and his wrestling and his style, you can see some of those notes that are trademark moves of Flair, like the throw into the turnbuckle and he flips over it to the outside, and the face flop, and even some of the way he throws punches where he grabs a person by the head and just like knuckle punches them the shell out of them. His figure four leg lock. You can almost kind of see it. You can almost like see it as the match goes on. He kind of shakes the rust off almost in real time and gets his groove going to where he's, back in prime form. And obviously the run in by Arn Anderson, again, another old WCW guy. I love that. That's one of my favorite. That's probably my favorite moment in the match is Arn Anderson running in with that spine buster. That was probably my favorite moment in the match. Obviously, both guys got some blood, which is, given that we don't see that anymore in wrestling, well, at least not in the WWE product, it's always nice to see some guys, get a little bit of color on them, especially in a match like this that's no disqualification. Obviously, anything goes.
Yeah.
You would expect something like this to happen. So
we even see Ric Flair hit the Undertaker with the chair.
Yeah. Also a keep off sign and the lead pipe from the Undertaker's bike. Like, I understand like why this match needed to be a no disqualification match, because this is like the only way that you believe that 53-year-old Ric Flair has a chance to be the Undertaker.
Was he 50?
Yeah, he was 50. He was not 53. He was like 52. So he was up there. So, I love the match. As far as like finally getting like one icon, another, like the tagline, one icon versus another icon. But I don't think that this was like Ric Flair's best. Like Dre had pointed out, that, like you could see like there's some rust, even with the finish, because like the Undertaker's trying to get him over with his last ride. Move, and he just can't. I'm not sure if Ric Flair's just not. He no longer has the hops, and he can't get the leg strength to help the Undertaker lift him up. And they just like go, all right, we'll just screw it. We'll just go with the tombstone, and then that's how it ends. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, like there was some good like normal Ric Flair bleeding, obviously one of his trademark things, but it's not a revisit for me, just because I know that Ric Flair has other matches, and like Dre points out, this kind of like jump starts like, oh, is this like my second career happening right here, my second run,
right?
And he does get like really good matches later on,
right?
But I'm glad that this match is like reinvigorating his juices, and I just can't recommend it for anyone to revisit. What about you?
Me, okay. So looking at these two names, The Undertaker, icon, Ric Flair, icon, we're looking at history in the ring. I was really excited going in during this match to watch both of them. And for Ric Flair to be in his 50s, he can move. It's a little rough. And like Drew said, that's why I was waiting to hear it, because you say that this kind of sparks his ignition for these next matches. And I think you said he also wrestles in 22.
Yeah, he did wrestle last year. I mean, he almost like passed out, but yeah, he wrestled last year.
So, I like Ric Flair also, the personality. Still watch him when I see him in an interview. Look to hear his stories. Love to hear him talk. We even see his daughter wrestling now, right? But with that said, this match for me with The Undertaker going in for the pin and the win, that was hard for me to see.
Yeah.
I would have preferred that Ric Flair win, I would have liked to have seen him, go on top. I understand that The Undertaker was undefeated at this point, and I think this just added to his winning streak of like 10-0 or something.
Yeah.
But this was not a rewatch for me, and that's what I got in this match.
Dre, do you recommend this match? You're the last one.
I actually would recommend this match. I do think it is good enough for a rewatch. One, seeing Ric Flair return to WrestleMania and seeing him get back into the ring as a wrestler. Two, it is Undertaker's 10th one, and it's him going 10-0, which historically speaking, this is actually the first time that they even mentioned the streak. The previous time, wait, did they mention it before, or just make it an actual thing?
Jim Ross mentions if it's not WrestleMania 9, it's WrestleMania 11 that the Undertaker's blank and no, because he misses WrestleMania 20. I mean X. He misses WrestleMania X.
But. Okay, so they talked about him like having not lost before.
Yeah,
but had they ever mentioned it like being an actual streak? Per se?
I guess you could count it as them counting it. If you want to nitpick that they use the word streak, then yes, this is the first time that the word streak is being mentioned.
Yeah, because I think the only reason why I bring it up is because at the end of this match, Undertaker himself acknowledges it as he exited the ring, and he actually counts to 10, and he tells the story that going into this match, he wasn't aware of the fact that he had never lost of his own streak. So somebody had mentioned it to him going into this match that he's like, you've never lost at WrestleMania before, right? And he's like, really? He's like, yeah, if you win this one, this would be like your 10th straight win. So that's why as he exits the ring, he does the count to 10. Him acknowledging that he's 10-0. So that's the historic part that I mentioned of it, is like,
okay,
the first like a kind of real acknowledgement, at least from him, of his own streak.
And then did you all see Ric Flair bust out the brass knuckles?
Oh yeah, he always busts
Does
out.
He? Yeah, that's it.
Like you said, it's like one of those things that he's always known to do later, especially later on. But
yeah, they called him the dirtiest player in the game for a reason.
Wow. Yeah, I love to hear everybody's opinion. That's what's kind of curious about what you thought about it, because I was like, I know what my take is going in just watching this. But like you said, you had the VHS, one of your favorite matches, one that you like to rewatch. So I was like, you tell me, and I like to hear, I love to hear your opinion. So thank you.
Yeah. If anything kind of hurt Flair's performance in this match outside of just Rust itself, is the fact that he is also working this match as a babyface. And anybody who follows Flair's career knows Flair unquestionably does his best work as a heel.
Yeah.
Like, he earned that moniker of dirtiest player in the game for a reason. That's because of his excellent heel work.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, and comment from our Facebook live chat, he's getting jinx for later. That's accurate, but I mean, it takes a while. But yes, he is getting jinx for later.
What does that mean?
So the next match we have is Edge versus five-time WCW champion Booker T. This match, it goes for 6 minutes and 32 seconds. Now, Maria, your first introduction to Booker T, and now Edge is on his own. Who are you rooting for?
Booker T.
Oh, awesome! Because I was rooting for Booker T.
You're rooting for Booker T?
Like, when I saw this live, watching it again, I'm like, Booker T still has that, I don't know what it is, but he still entertains me. So I was still rooting for Booker T, even though I know how this match ends. Dre.
Yeah, this one, I think I was more or less indifferent about this match because neither one of these guys was really at a point that I was invested in either character. Like Edge wasn't too far removed from being in a tag team with Edge and Christian, which I found them to be entertaining, but he was a heel, so I wasn't really that big on Edge yet. It was coming where I would kind of start to appreciate Edge more, but it wasn't there at this point. And then Booker T, to me, he definitely hadn't found his character in WWF yet. And he still kind of had a bit of that tinge of being basically the bootleg Rock that he was in the late WCW run, because that's basically what he had become. And the time when WWE was starting to win the Monday Night War and they were taking over and had regained the ratings lead over WCW. Vince Russo had gone to WCW and he was their lead writer, and they were basically trying to copy what WWF was doing to win. So they saw Rock, who was coming out there with the Versace shirts and the slacks and catchphrases and all that stuff, and they said, hey, we got a black guy too. We can do that with him. And they basically made Booker T their version of The Rock. So much so that his finisher, the bookend, was basically just a modified version of the Rock Bottom.
Wow.
And so that's what he became, and they almost kind of like tried to turn Scott Steiner almost into their version of Triple H per se. Because this was also during the year 2000, which was prime Rock Triple H year in WWE, because Stone Cold was out injured, and WCW was copying. So Booker T comes to the WWF. He has that still air about him, gets thrown into the feud with The Rock, gets squashed, and it's just basically middling from that point on through now.
Right.
It doesn't really have any direction or any really gimmick or anything. So this was definitely a throwaway match. Probably among all the matches on the card, this was probably the most throwaway match of them all, because it didn't really have any we didn't have any titles on the line, nothing really at stake. It was just two guys who admittedly are great workers in the ring. Booker T is absolutely one of the best workers in the ring, but there's no real reason to care about this match.
Yeah.
But we had the Spinneroonie. What are you talking about? That's what we had. That's what we all came for.
But I agree with Dre. Like, okay, as far as a WrestleMania match, like, this is the match. No, they work well with each other. I enjoyed seeing the Spinneroonie from Booker T. I think Edge does a poorly executed version of it.
The Edge-a-Rooney.
The Edge-a-Rooney.
Yep.
The win was okay. The match was fun. And that's why it's worth the rematch or rewatch for me.
Really?
Like, is it epic? Like, no. But is it fun? And if you're watching this, rewatch it.
Okay, I didn't expect that one.
Yeah, that surprised me.
I was like, I wanted to give this a recommendation just like you did,
right?
Just because it's like two good wrestlers, like Dre had pointed out. They know how to work. They've been working for a while, and they know maybe if they had more time than the 6 minutes and 32 seconds, this might have been another match that suffered of having a shortened program.
Right.
But also, they keep bringing up this Japanese shampoo commercial. What if they had made it for the winner gets the contract for that Japanese shampoo commercial?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you keep bringing it up if that has nothing to do with this match?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it might have been part of the build up to the match or something of that nature. Like, I don't even remember what their feud was going into this.
Yeah.
That's really kind of how forgettable that this moment was. And again, within the pantheon of Booker T's matches, if I was to make a singular recommendation of Booker T work for somebody to go back and watch, I would tell somebody, go back, and if you can find it, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or something, but go back and catch Booker T versus Chris Benoit in a best of 7 series that they had in WCW over the world television title. Those two had
on that. That sounds really good.
Yeah, they did this thing. It's something that I wish that WWE would do now with some of their better workers. But yeah, in WCW, Booker T and Chris Benoit had a best of 7 series matches for the World Television title, which was obviously their workman's title at that time. That was a title that was defended on Nitro every week. So I think I don't know if they did it for 7 straight weeks of Nitro or if it was a combination of Nitro and Thunder, but they had 7 matches, basically like an NBA playoff series over this title. And those are for 2 guys to have consecutive matches back to back to back like that. And each one of them be great. And then also raise the stakes throughout the match, throughout the series, to where they kept like elevating themselves. It's honestly one of the best series you can find. And I would highly recommend catching that. It's 2 guys who are absolutely on their game for that entire series. And it's a phenomenal series to go back and watch. Those 2 work.
All right. Well, definitely wrote that down. So we'll bookmark that and come back to that another time. This leads us to our next match. This is number 7 on the card. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus one of the outsiders, Scott Hall from NWO. This match goes for 9 minutes, 51 seconds.
And Hollywood Hogan was part of NWO at this time, right?
Yes,
correct.
Hollywood Hogan's always been part of the NWO, not just in this particular time.
Oh, okay.
He was a founding member.
Yeah.
At Bash of the Beach, 1996, I believe, is when the NWO was founded.
Dang.
Okay. And this one we kind of have a reintroduction to you. You knew him as Razor Ramon, but he is Scott Hall. I know you were a fan of Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
And you're a fan of Stone Cold.
He's a really sharp wrestler.
So who were you rooting for?
I was rooting for Stone Cold, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Who were you rooting for?
I think I would have been rooting for Scott Hall.
Okay.
Thinking back and
sorry, Dre.
Dre, who were you rooting for?
Oh, without question, it would have been Stone Cold, because at this time, as much as I appreciated Scott Hall, and he's definitely one of my favorite workers, and loved his work as Razor Ramon during the 90s and the early 90s in WWF. Still, it's Stone Cold, and you appreciate Scott Hall, love Scott Hall, but then you put him up against Stone Cold, it's like, come on, there's levels to this, okay?
Yeah.
I love Stone Cold's intro. I'm happy to see Big Sexy, and I am surprised that the wrestling commences just right away.
They get right into it, right?
Yeah, they get right into it. It's exciting. And Scott Hall's taking the hits they brought for a while. No hall pass for him. He's just getting it.
Yeah. Dre?
Yeah, the caption that you have on the screen kind of perfectly describes this match for me, which is a bit surprising given the caliber of star and wrestlers that you have. Again, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the face of the Attitude Era. We're in the twilight of the Attitude Era here in WrestleMania 18, but he's still pretty much, if not the top guy in the company, if he ain't 1A, he's 1B
right
at this point. And then Scott Hall, again, a great worker. Those two have, somewhat parallels to each other in terms of in terms of their characterization of being, the tough guy, the bad guy. Obviously Razor Ramon, when Scott Hall was in there as Razor Ramon, that was his moniker, the bad guy.
Yeah.
And Stone Cold Steve Austin also being, the toughest SOB in the world and all that. So they have their similarities. This match seems like it would be tailor-made to be great, to be a phenomenal match.
Right.
And it's not that the match sucks, but it just felt like it was just missing something.
Mm-hmm.
Like something about it just did not quite measure up to what you thought this match could be.
Yeah.
And I still, even to this day, I can't quite pinpoint what it was. I don't know if it just got outshined so much by Rock Hogan. I don't know if just the crowd's energy just wasn't behind it as much. I don't know if it was just placed too much in the middle of the card that where it just didn't have the same, feel like it had the same magnitude. The build up to it, I do remember the build up to it was kind of lackluster. They kind of went super campy with it, with hitting Stone Cold with a hammer in the back of the head, and he's in an ambulance, and they hit the ambulance with a truck, and it's like, y'all trying too hard. Y'all are trying way too hard to make us care about a match that we already care about. Like, y'all ain't got to work this hard for it. Yeah. But yeah, something about it was just, was just missing. It never quite fully clicked for me the way I wanted it to.
Carlos, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I echo what Dre's saying. It's like there's something missing, and like I can't think of what it is. Like I've watched wrestling for so long, and usually I'm able to be like, this is missing. Like Stone Cold and Scott Hall. Like you have the face, you have the heel. Like maybe people were still turned off because this is coming, like it's a few months removed, but it's still coming off of Stone Cold being aligned with Vince McMahon. But at this point in time, he has this what chant that's really hitting.
What is it?
Where it's like, say something.
Something.
What? And then that's was like mostly Stone Cold promos. Like he would be like, "What? What?" And then the audience, and then you still hear it from like with the crowd now. They'll be like, "What?"
So yeah, it still lives on to this day. You'll catch somebody in a promo, if they happen to pause a little too much in their promo, here come the fans. What?
Yeah. So it's I can't tell you like exactly what would have made this match better or like made you care a little bit more. You want the babyface to win. Can you have? I think this would have benefited more of it having like like a disqualification if you wanted to build it to something. I think back in these days we had Backlash after this. So or Payback. No, it was Backlash, right? We would
I believe after this one was Backlash.
Yeah. So sometimes some of the matches would from WrestleMania, they would go back into kind of have like a rematch. So it was like a way to reset type of thing for Vince somehow. Like if he didn't like the way something finished or someone didn't like it, like the crowd,
like a multiverse.
Yeah,
he just keep on going into
he created his own what if I.
Oh no, like a Flash where he goes into those different timelines trying to change things.
Yeah. Except for Vince actually changed everything.
So, exactly. Yeah. I think the best I could say, if I could try to pinpoint anything as to why this match didn't quite work, if I had to pin it on something, I would have to pin it on star power, because Scott Hall was back in the WWF after having left for WCW and his run there with the NWO and all that stuff, but he didn't get the same reception as Hulk Hogan did coming back, where the crowd was like, yes, you're back. We love you. We appreciate you. And on Stone Cold's side, while this is the twilight of the Attitude Era, he's still, the top star, but he's not prime Attitude Era Stone Cold. He's not true face of the company Stone Cold. Like I said, the whole 1A to 1B thing, during most of the Attitude Era, if you think about who the top two stars were, it's unquestionably The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And for the majority of that time, you could have put them both 1A or 1B, but for the majority of that time, Stone Cold Steve Austin was clearly 1A and The Rock was 1B. Even while Stone Cold was out during 2000 and Rock really solidified him, and that was the year that The Rock solidified himself as that top guy who was on Stone Cold Steve Austin's level and really ascended to that number one status right alongside Stone Cold, which set up WrestleMania 17, which was obviously the monstrous pay-per-view that it was at that time, which I think you talked about the buy rates of this show beforehand, which was like 800 something thousand pay-per-view buy rates. WrestleMania 17, I think, did 900 something thousand or close or over 1 million.
Yeah, 920,000. Internationally, they did 70,000. So we're talking, like you said, over 1 million.
Yeah, which at the time was the biggest WrestleMania of all time, and it held that title for a number of years moving forward until I don't know if it was 20 or 25 or one of them that eclipsed it, but for the longest time, 17 was the biggest one because of the magnitude of those stars, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Again, 1A and 1B. But by the time we hit 18, Stone Cold Steve Austin is no longer 1A. It's almost certain, pretty clear that The Rock is now 1A and Stone Cold has come down a notch and he's 1B. And there's a little bit of a gap between them that may not have been there a year prior at WrestleMania 17.
Right.
So I think just that little bit of diminished star power of Stone Cold Steve Austin, as combined with Scott Hall's return not being as enthusiastically embraced as, say, Hulk Hogan, just kind of took a little bit of diminished the overall match as a whole, even given the names that were involved with it. They just didn't quite have that magnitude, especially compared to Rock and Hogan.
Right. Yeah, and Dre, so we're talking about wrestling personalities, like you said, Stone Cold, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. Like, I'm excited to see all these personalities, but this match was a pass for me. We get a lot of stunners, and the stunners were fun, but the best part of this match for me is when the ref slides in. This was really tough, but the match is not a revisit. But watch the end to see the stunners because they were stunning.
Did you steal my favorite part of this match?
When that ref slid in, Kevin Nash just elbow dropped.
Yeah, but that ref, he slid in like it was just so smooth. He's almost like sliding out of the ring. That's how good he slid.
He slid right into that elbow drop too. It was like Kevin Nash just had it queued up and he slid right in position just to catch it.
Yeah. If you want to revisit a match and be impressed by this ref's in-ring slide, revisit this match for that. If you don't want to, then that's fine. Yeah, this is also a pass for me. I would love to recommend this match, but I can't. Dre?
Yeah, I'm with y'all on that. Again, that is also my favorite part of the match was that referee sliding into that elbow drop from Kevin Nash. Y'all can skip everything, but just play that one part, and you can skip the rest of it.
All right. So we're moving on to the next match.
We're sliding on to match 8.
Yeah, we're sliding on to the Four Corners elimination match for the Tag Team Championship. This match goes for 13 minutes and 50 seconds. We have the Dudley Boys returning, the APA, the Alkali Protection Agency, Farouk and Bradshaw, the Hardy Boys, and a new tag team coming up, Billy and Chuck.
Billy and Chuck.
Yeah. So, who are you rooting for?
For this Four Corners elimination match? I'm a fan of the Dudley.
Okay.
There are a lot of people in this match, so I was trying to keep up, really. But I'm a fan of the 3D drop, which is that Dudley Death Drop. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Dre.
Yeah. This match, I remember that this time I was rooting for the APA at this time.
Okay.
They were one of my favorite tag teams. I loved Bradshaw's clothesline from hell. Farouk, aka Ron Simmons, also one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. For those who don't know, Ron Simmons, first Black World Champion ever, and that is still to this day one of my favorite moments ever as a kid, as a wrestling fan. Period. I remember seeing that moment as a child and being how significant that moment was of seeing Ron Simmons win the world title. This was back in WCW, but him winning the world title for the first time. I even tried to be Ron Simmons for Halloween one year. Like, that's how much of a fan I was of him.
How old were you? Or you're like, this was last year?
Oh no, that last year. No, I think at this time I was maybe like 9 or something like that years old, and I was trying to be Ron Simmons for Halloween, and I literally was throwing my costume together at the last minute. So I was trying to make my own world title belt because obviously I couldn't get one from the store or anything. So I'm taking trying to get construction paper, but we didn't have time to go to the store to get construction paper. So I had to take notebook paper, and I had a gold crayon, and had had recorded an episode of, I think, World Championship Wrestling that night to try to pause it so I could see the belt, so I could try to draw it on the paper. And I looked at the picture and I was like, okay, that's a little too complicated. So I'm just going to cut out a shape and just color it all gold. And I'm taping it together, pieces of notebook paper, trying to make a last minute world title belt. And I was going to wear that around my waist and go out there with no shirt on, this little skinny, short 9-year-old kid. Of course, my mom was like, it's October. It is cold out there. Put a damn shirt on. So I grabbed the skinniest, the tightest fitting black shirt I had just to look like I was muscular. And I went out there, and that belt, little notebook paper belt, lasted all of maybe 10 minutes outside in the cold in the wind before it ripped up.
But, that is so cute.
But you could have made it a hardcore title if you knew about that back then.
If that had been a thing back then. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, that was Ron Simmons is also on my list of favorite wrestlers of all time. Him personally means a lot to me, his career and everything. So I've always had great admiration for Ron Simmons, and obviously him, and with Bradshaw and APA, they were one of my favorites. So this match, I was definitely rooting for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Maria, anything you like about this match? Or
I love this match. I really had a good time with this match. I have a lot of favorites in here, and I definitely think it's a rewatch.
Okay. All right. Did you like the way the match ended up finishing? Because you said you were a fan of the Dudleys, but they did not win.
Yeah, so I thought the winners and the new champions were the Dudleys.
No, it was Chuck and Billy. They retained.
They retained the title?
Yeah.
That they did.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I thought this match was good. I love tag team matches. I thought the Hardy Boys really put a foot in it. We see, like I said, Jeff Hardy taking hits. There's just a lot of good spots, and it's like a tag team extravaganza. Watch it, rewatch it. We see Devon get tossed into the same table that he set up. It was just really good for me.
Yeah. Trey?
Yeah, I thought this was a good match, but it's a good match if you look at it on its own. But it's given this current era of tag team wrestling, which was a really strong era. WCW had, not WCW, WWF had a good, strong couple of years of great tag teams, especially being carried by the Dudleys, the Hardys, APA, Edge and Christian. Even Billy Gunn was a major factor in the tag team scene throughout a number of these years. Before he paired up with Billy and Chuck, he was obviously with Road Dogg as the New Age Outlaws. So he had some great tag teams and some great tag team wrestling. Billy and Chuck was this one that they were really trying to get over. Side note, I forgot another theme that I forgot about. Their interest theme was always hilarious to me.
Yeah. The boy band theme song.
Rewatching this one and then hearing that come up, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that.
That's a good laugh. That's like an earworm that's living in it. Like every moment that I have to think, I hear the "You look so good to me."
Oh, that was one of the. That's when WWF was really in their bag for theme songs in this era.
Yeah,
but yeah, like I said, this match was good. The one, if I had to knock it for anything, I kind of feel like it's hard to make good matches with 4 tag teams because everybody has to get their moment in, and it's a lot of action to happen, and sometimes it can end up looking like a bit of a mess. That's why if you compare this match to other matches like WrestleMania 17's TLC match with Edge and Christian and the Hardys, and it clearly doesn't measure up to any of that.
Oh no.
So it's not on that level, but on its own, it is a good enough match. I think the guys, they're all excellent workers. They all had moments of, their moments to shine and got their moments in, and they made the most of the time that they had and the number of competitors they had in. So overall, I think it is a good match. I was disappointed in the finish because I don't think anybody saw Billy and Chuck retaining their titles against the caliber of tag teams that they were up against. And somehow they pulled it off, which, if I had to be honest, I think was kind of a mistake. I kind of don't think they should have won that. I get that they were trying to get Billy and Chuck over as a team, but again, there's levels to this. And at this point, they just weren't on the level of, especially the Dudleys and the Hardys.
Yeah, the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Dudleys, Bubba Ray, and Devon. And like you said, the APA, Bradshaw and Farouk. Those are all really excellent tag teams. So to see them win,
right? It was like, really? They pulled it out. Granted, they cheated to win, but still, like, okay, I guess so.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, this was a borderline match for me where I want to recommend it because it's a good tag team match, like Dre pointed out. Like, if this was like a Monday Night Raw or a SmackDown, this would be one of the matches, if not the match of the night. But this is WrestleMania, and you always have to step up. Your entertainment, your moves got to be fast, crisper, and everything's got to be smooth. And it's like, I don't feel like this particular way the match ends gets any type of pop at all. It's kind of a mixed reaction pop. You can see like the crowd that's right behind the ring on the opposite side of the hard cam. Some guys giving the finger.
Yeah, I saw that.
When Billy and Chuck are going for the first pin after Billy hits the famouser on Jeff Hardy.
Right.
And then when Chuck is unable to get the pin, Billy goes to get the belt. And then that same guy is giving the fingers because he does not obviously agree with the way this match is ending. So some people are cheering, some people are not. And that's not really what you want. You want either the crowd to be unanimously with them, if they're like pro the heel or pro the talent, or against them. So we didn't get that, and I can't recommend this match based on the way we're supposed to go with ring psychology and everything.
Right. And like Dre said, TLC match, this match is about here, TLC match is about here. So.
Exactly. Yeah, there's, and even when you look at that, like, if you compare it to something like the TLC match, Edge and Christian in that TLC match, I believe, I can't remember if they went in as the champions and retained or not, but I do know they won the match and they were heels.
Yeah.
But the heels winning that match didn't upset the audience in the way that Billy and Chuck winning this match kind of upset the audience, in the way that this wasn't what they wanted. Like, obviously going into the TLC match, people didn't necessarily want Edge and Christian to win because they're heels, but seeing them win felt earned. It felt like they legit worked for that win, and again, like I said, earned that victory over these guys. They really fought for it. Billy and Chuck winning this match didn't quite feel as earned. It just kind of felt like a little dirty, a little sleazy. And I don't know if that's just a product of the match itself being a little bit too crowded, so that the way they didn't really have a chance to showcase themselves and build up that equity with the audience. Or if it's just, again, just the fact that they just weren't seen as being on that caliber. And if you wanted to build them up as a tag team on the level of Dudleys and Hardys and APA, they should have been showcased more in this match to do that. But which was another fault of the match in terms of the booking. A lot of this match they were in the background of.
Yeah.
Most of the action took place between the Dudleys, the Hardys, and mostly the APA.
Yeah.
And then the guys that were the champions just kind of slid in through the back door and snuck out with the titles, which again also will leave a bad taste in the crowd's, bad taste in the crowd's mouth if this isn't the team that they're inherently rooting for.
Right.
So Billy and Chuck, they don't even have an official tag team name. So
no, it's just Billy and Chuck.
So there you go. No.
Yeah, Billy and Chuck, their gimmick was basically being the pseudo gay guys that weren't actually gay. They even went so far as at one point, I think later on in their run or towards the end of their run, they actually played it up like they were actually having a wedding of sorts.
Yeah.
Like Billy and Chuck were going to get married to each other. And then in the middle of the segment, they were like, wait, we're not gay. What the hell? And they just kind of like,
that's like,
yeah, that's like the whole thing. Yeah, that was it. Like
that sounds pretty dumb too. So
it was like their whole gimmick was like, are they gay or not gay? Like they had a whole lot of gay innuendo, as you can see, obviously from their appearance and their look and how all that stuff. A lot of gay innuendo, but they weren't actually gay. So they kind of went right up to the line and then jumped all the way back at the tail end.
Lazy writing. So is this a revisit for you, rewatch, or this is a pass?
I would say it's probably still, even with my misgivings about the match, I think it still is worth a revisit. You still got 4 really good tag teams in this match, and they're all doing great work. Is it one of the best tag team matches in the history of WrestleMania? Not at all. But is it a good tag team match in its own right? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And with this, we'll go ahead and move along.
Is this a revisit for you?
No, I said it wasn't. It was borderline.
And it is a rewatch for me. I did enjoy seeing the Hardy Boys, Dudleys, and the APA wrestling. But Billy and Chuck were a little forgettable for me. So with that, it takes us to the main event.
Well, it's not the main event.
I know.
Right? Okay.
She said what she said. It's the main event.
Match number 9 on the card. The Rock versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. This match goes for 16 minutes and 24 seconds.
So the Attitude Era is on its way out. Ruthless Aggression Era on its way in.
But not yet.
Not yet. Not quite.
No, we still got to get time to it. But this is the I guess you can call it the first class, just like the X-Men had first class.
Yes.
The first class versus the Attitude Era. The first person or to be part of the main event of WrestleMania, the one that started it all, Hollywood. Well, not Hollywood at the time, but Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. Movie star extraordinaire to be, because at this point in time, after he wins this match, I believe he starts going on his presser tour to start promoting the movie The Scorpion King. So I know you and I have pretty much like, I think after number 6 or 7, we were like, please just stop showing us Hulk Hogan at a WrestleMania.
That's true.
But this is like, welcome back, Hulk Hogan.
Only because the main events seem to be bummers with him in it. You know, I expected more, and I just wasn't getting it from his main event matches at WrestleMania. So, but this I was excited to see, and the build up for this match was so well done.
If there's anything you were going to get from these two guys is the ability to cut a promo. It was kind of shocking to me that Hulk Hogan didn't have to resort to his prayers, vitamins, and ripping his shirts and all of his promos.
Yeah, Jay, what did you think about this match?
Yes, before we even get into the match itself, the build up to this match itself warrants discussion because as you just said, Carlos, that being surprised that Hogan didn't have to resort to his old catchphrases, the Hulkamania, the vitamins, all that stuff. That is a testament to just how good Hulk Hogan is and his work as a heel in his WCW NWO days. Because obviously, following along just the WrestleMania story, it starts with Hulk Hogan as the face and ends with Hogan as the face. So if you don't see any of his WCW years and especially his NWO work, then yeah, you might not be aware of just how good of a heel Hulk Hogan was. Arguably just as good of a heel as he was a babyface. And a lot of people didn't think he had that in him because he was so big as a babyface, because he was so over. He was the biggest name in wrestling in the 80s. So for him to, and yeah, the face of a generation of wrestling fans. And people didn't think he could pull off heel. He didn't even think he could pull off being a heel. Oddly enough, the person who convinced him to do it was somebody that we saw earlier in this pay-per-view, Scott Hall.
Oh, yeah.
Scott Hall was the one that convinced him to become the heel, and join up with them and being and forming the NWO. Like I said, reference back at Bash at the Beach, 1996.
Right.
So yeah, Hulk Hogan's heel work, for anybody who's watching WCW at that time, they know is top tier. He made you hate his guts. And I count myself from among them people. I hated Hollywood Hulk Hogan. But seeing him come back here, obviously, at this point, we're far removed from the prime NWO and all that stuff, and it's just Hogan back in WWF. And that promo that they cut, I still remember it the night after No Way Out, which was the pay-per-view that led into WrestleMania. The night after No Way Out, that Monday Night Raw in Chicago, Illinois, when Hulk Hogan came out and he cut that promo talking about talking about the fans, where he was basically just tearing up the fans, like, you people turned on me, you guys, you fans, you can stick it. And he's saying, I'm the biggest name, past or present, and there'll never ever be a bigger name in the history of the wrestling business, bigger than Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that pause, and then, if you smell, and the rock music hits. I still remember popping out of my seat when that moment hit, because especially at this time, because internet wrestling community was a thing at this time. So there was obvious speculation online that once the NWO in Hollywood had been brought in, that we were building towards Rock Hogan at WrestleMania. There was some speculation that it could possibly be Hogan Austin, but most people were leaning. Most of the rumors were that we were going, not Rock Austin, Hogan versus Austin, but most of the rumors were pointing towards Hogan versus The Rock. So the hype was there, the anticipation was there. Everybody wanted to see, like, hell yeah. Again, Rock is the fate. Like I said, he's 1A. Stone Cold is 1B at this point. And then you got Hollywood Hogan, icon, that build up. So when that moment finally happened, and if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend going back and watching that promo that they cut. Again, it's the Raw after No Way Out from Chicago. Highly recommend watching that promo, because you can feel, if you thought you felt electricity in this match, there was electricity in that promo the moment The Rock hit the ring. Obviously, they show snippets of it in the hype reel for this match, but seeing it actually in that moment, and The Rock hit that ring, and them two standing face to face, and the crowd is just going nuts, chanting Rocky, then chanting Hogan, and they stood there just for like a good 2 or 3, maybe almost 5 minutes before they even said a word to each other, just because the crowd was just at that much of a fever pitch and that hype and that built up. And just seeing this moment, and that, again, that promo is phenomenal. It is one of the best promo segments in Raw history.
It is.
I can say that without question. In all the years of Raw, that is probably one of the top 5 promo segments ever, is that Rock Hogan promo. So yeah, going into the match itself, obviously the electricity is there, the hype is there, the energy is there. Clearly, this had all the main event energy. It's hard to have a crowd that hype.
Right.
They can pop for moments. Somebody's music hits, there's a run-in, they pop for that. Somebody's entrance comes, they pop for that. But to have a crowd just be at 10 from bell to bell the entire way through, that is a very hard thing to do.
Right.
But yet, when you get these two guys who are maybe not the best technical wrestlers ever, obviously they have their ability, but that's not what they rely upon to entertain the fans. But they are absolute masters of their craft of sports entertainment and knowing how to hold a crowd in the palm of their hand and bend them to their will in whichever way they want and completely keep their attention glued on them the entire time. These guys managed to do it for the entire duration of this match.
Yeah.
And that is something that cannot go understated.
No, and it doesn't, because The Rock, icon. We have history in the ring, his father, his family, that legacy, and then also to see Hulk Hogan, who we've seen wrestle with Andre the Giant, the Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man. I was just like, this is awesome. And I couldn't wait to see them wrestle. Like you said, the build-up was amazing, the storyline amazing, and the audience went wild.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like with everything that it's been echoed here or said. Sorry, I mean to echo, but the build up was very very well done. Like there's nothing that we can add or criticize as far as this is concerned. Besides this being put in the wrong slot, they should have been in the main event, and you put it in the poster as icon versus icon, like how I started off this pay per view. And I know that Vince has a hard on at this point in time to make the winner of the Royal Rumble main event WrestleMania versus the champion. But this is one of the times where it should have been one of those, like, like not the exception to the rule, where it should have just been like Hunter, Jericho. I know you guys were promised the main event, but we have to, bump you down in the middle, maybe not the middle, but near it. So you guys don't have to worry about following this potentially white hot matchup between The Rock and Hulk Hogan.
Exactly. Like Jericho and Triple H should have been the penultimate match. It should have been the next to last match. And then you close out the show with Rock and Hogan. And then you get that again, build up that audience. Just imagine looking at how hyped the audience was at this point in the show for the match. And there were still two more after it. Imagine if you had held this to the main event and you had all the other matches coming up. You got everything else out of the way. You could have probably had a better reception to the women's match that unfortunately had to follow this. You could have had better reaction to the Jericho Triple H match, which unfortunately had to follow this. And then you get all that stuff out of the way, and then now it's time. Main event, Rock Hogan. As hype as this audience already was, they would have been even more hyped up. And I could only imagine how much more this match could have been. And this is already, in my opinion, one of my favorite WrestleMania matches ever. And to think that it could have been even more had it been placed in the main event slot where it should have been.
And we can hear this crowd from Toronto. Initially, they're cheering for The Rock, but it turns and they start cheering for Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
So
they start winning Hogan back to the light side. He was at the dark side with the NWO, and I guess you could say that The Rock is kind of like Luke Skywalker trying to bring his dad back from the dark side, and he ends up winning. He gets him back. This match was really very well done for Hogan couldn't take a lot of bumps, and The Rock did a lot of good stuff to protect him, so he didn't have to. And as much as protection that I think Hogan actually does get legit injured, uh, he's holding his pec or underneath his pec. I think he like fractures a rib. If I had,
he does. I think, yeah, I believe he broke 2 or 3 ribs in this match. I think it was the third rock bottom, if I remember correctly, was the one where he actually fractured his ribs.
Yeah. So 49-year-old Hulk Hogan didn't take his vitamin for making sure that his bones are
I love
being able to
everything about this match.
Yeah. Get into it. What do you like? Like you were rooting for Hogan then, or were you rooting for The Rock?
I was rooting for The Rock.
Okay.
Like I told you, excited to see Hulk Hogan. I was so excited because, like I told you, I have seen him wrestle Andre, Macho, The Ultimate Warrior. And I'm just like, we're seeing like this epic moment in wrestling history. And like you said, maybe they're not like technical wrestlers, but their personalities are so huge, and so awesome. They rope you in, they bring you into the story, they make you excited to see them wrestle, move, and you start rooting for them. So I had a really good time with this match. I enjoyed seeing them wrestle. I enjoyed seeing Hulk wrestle, who you said was how old?
49 or 48.
He's 48, 49 at the time. I'm like, I hope I can move that way when I'm 48 and 49. He wasn't gassed during this match. And even at the end, they both kind of look at each other and they have like that respect for each other. And you talk about that episode in Young Rock where
Young Rock, like Dewey, like I think either 10 or 11-year-old, tells a story about how they're going to the WrestleMania launch party. And he tells his dad if he can meet Hulk Hogan. And he's like, why? I thought I was your favorite wrestler. He's like, no, Hulk Hogan, Dad. I want to meet Hulk Hogan. So thinking back to that moment and like being able to see it actually happen, I bet it was like something that he was probably loving, that he actually got to do that, which was probably something he never thought he'd ever be able to do.
Oh yeah.
So
you can see genuine emotions and genuine reactions from both Rock and Hogan in this match. Like from the moment Hogan comes out, where he's like strumming like the fake air guitar, but then he realizes how much the crowd is cheering for him, and you see him like pause for a moment and look and like, wait, I'm supposed to be the heel and you guys are cheering for me. And he a couple of points in this match, he reacts like, wait, I'm really over with you guys. Like, and you can see him almost, you can see the wheels turning again. Like I said, guys who are masters at their craft, you can see their wheels are turning and they're reacting in real time to how the audience is reacting to them. The Rock realizes that the fans aren't 100% behind him, so he starts to play it up a little more heelish in terms of his work in the ring, like whipping Hogan with the belt a little more aggressively than he maybe would have as a pure baby face. You know, pulling Hogan back into the ring with the sharpshooter as opposed to just letting him break. You know, Hogan, and obviously the ultimate face moment of the match is Hogan when he hulks up after that rock bottom, and the crowd just completely loses it to him hulking up. And at that point, like, he's no longer Hollywood Hogan. He's just Hulkamania Hulk Hogan, full on.
Yeah.
And then even with that, as much as they were behind him, and The Rock giving one or two more rock bottoms and even getting slightly booed, the second he kicked up and went to that people's elbow, the audience was right back with him. Like, yep, we love you again, Rock. Hit him with that people's elbow. Let's get this 3 count.
Yeah. It's like what I've been telling my wife, like The Rock has been able, in my opinion, to like properly assess the crowd reactions and being able to probably convince the other guy he's working with to adjust on the fly. He's able to work either being a face or being a heel for the way the crowd is reacting. And this is like another example of him being able to do that. And, you know, I think that as much as the crowd didn't like it that Hulk Hogan lost.
Mm-hmm.
We really can't have Hulk Hogan win.
I was okay with The Rock winning in a way that I wasn't okay with the Undertaker winning. And that's an iconic match with two, superstars. But the way that they won and this match was just so well done, so different. I was fine with The Rock winning. And then at the end, they give each other a handshake, they embrace, and they took a moment just to soak it all in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without question, The Rock was the right choice to win this match because, again, going into the match, he's the baby face. And then there's also the whole generational thing, the passing of the torch, as they mentioned multiple times in the discussing the match, wrestling's past meeting wrestling's future. And that's always been a thing where generations pass the torch from one to the next, even though obviously Rock was not wrestling's future because he was Hollywood bound. But as the narrative goes, the old lion passes it on to the young lion, gives him the rub, just as The Rock would do years later at a future WrestleMania, and so on and so forth. That's always been the thing down the line. Somebody had to give Hulk Hogan the rub at one point. We saw at WrestleMania 3. Prior to that, Hulkmania was the thing, but Andre was still the biggest name in wrestling prior to WrestleMania 3. Andre had to give Hogan the rub to, really solidify him. Hogan gives The Rock the rub, and like you said, they embrace it, they soak it all in, and you see when they're at the top of the apron before the end of their segment, as the Hogan holds The Rock's hand up, you can see The Rock is like genuinely becoming emotional, and like you can see him like really appreciating that moment. It's like he's genuinely touched by that moment.
Yeah. So for those that are watching or those that are listening, if you haven't guessed by now, I believe I can be as bold as to say that we highly recommend that you watch this match. This is my favorite match. This is Dre's favorite match. This is Maria's favorite match.
Yeah.
If you
want to check it out, I guess. No, I'm joking. No, absolutely. Like I said, this is one of my favorite.
But fans are still talking about it, like all across the interweb. So we're revisiting this Mania, but this is such an epic match that so many people still hold this as one of those top tier epic matches in wrestling, like one of those moments. So,
and it still holds up. Yeah, and it still holds up to this day. You can watch this match here 21 years later and still be just as entertained by it now as you were back then. And you can't always say that about every match.
No.
Not even some of the ones that are considered like the great matches.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to, to the old school, but Hogan and Andre does not hold up.
No.
Even though it's back then, it was as big as it got in wrestling. But you watch it now and it's like, definitely a product of the 80s.
Yeah. I just don't recommend that match because I feel bad for Andre.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you talk about his health and his condition at the time, he clearly was way past his prime.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and move on here
to Jazz.
To the women's. They're back. They have a title back on the line. This is the women's 3-way triple threat championship match between Jazz, making her WrestleMania debut, versus Trish Stratus, the hometown hero, and Lita. And this match, unfortunately for them, goes for 6 minutes and 16 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Maria?
Well, the ladies are taking the bumps. Trish got her leg hung up, and holy crap, that looked pretty nasty.
Mm-hmm.
How she made it back into the ring, I don't know, because that leg looked like it was pretty messed up. There were lots of Lita fans in the audience, but I think they were disappointed from what we saw during the last WrestleMania with her kind of jumping in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool, but it was a pass for me.
Dre?
Yeah, this match deserved so much better than what it actually got. You had 3 of the top women in the brand in the WWF at the time, especially Lita and Trish, and Jazz coming in as the champion, who is in my opinion, is a underrated worker. Unfortunately, her run was plagued by injury a lot in the WWF, which kind of hampered her. But when she was in the ring and working, she was one of the best in the WWF at the time. And then obviously the hometown hero of Trish, who I was rooting for in going into this match. I really wanted to see her win it in Toronto in front of the home crowd. I don't know what the hell Vince was thinking by having Jazz retain, but it is what it is. And yeah, they just another product of the time. In fact, that he appreciated the women enough to recognize that the fans liked them and wanted to see them, but
Right.
didn't really appreciate them enough as wrestlers yet to give them enough time to really showcase their abilities as wrestlers. It was just more about Vince was like, all right, here's the eye candy.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all he still kind of saw them as, like pretty girls who can wrestle. So we'll put y'all out there, give y'all a couple minutes. All right, look good, wrestle. Do you think? All right, get out the way.
Yeah.
As opposed to, if you had women of this caliber win your company in today's WWE, hell, you could argue that a match like this could have been a main event caliber match, given the status of these women, one of your top women, female performers in her hometown.
Right.
In today's WWE, this should have been, like I said, this should have been main event caliber, but they put it after Rock Hogan, which means the audience was dead as could be. But credit to the women, they did the best that they could with the time that they had.
Yeah, they did. And even though there was it was kind of sloppy a couple of moments there. Like my wife mentioned, when Trish gets hung up in the middle turnbuckle, her body moves one way, her leg stays one way, and then she gets thrown out of the ring and she takes a nasty spill outside. But Jazz retains. That's the right call. And because as good as talented that Lita and Trish are, they're not ready. And I don't recommend that you guys need to revisit this match, unfortunately, just because there's a lot of spots here that don't make it seem like it's a watchable match for me. Maria?
I agree. They have chemistry, and you have fan favorites like Trish, Lita, and I'm blanking on her name, Jazz.
Right.
All solid wrestlers. When you see them moving, the amount of time was short. After this match, it didn't do any of those ladies justice, and this is a pass for me. Agree?
Yeah, unfortunately, you kind of almost have to pass it just because they weren't given enough time to work with. You say that Jazz winning was the right call. I do still disagree with that. I still think Trish should have won the match. Again, hometown, WrestleMania. Usually that's when you give if there's ever a show to give the people what they want, it's WrestleMania. That's when you give the people exactly what they want. And you can go back to whatever you want to do later. So yeah, I feel like this one, especially this one, should have been Trish. I mean, for God's sake, she came out in the Canada tights in Canada. Like, she hammed it up all the way for the crowd, and she didn't come out on top. So
no,
it's disappointing. You could argue that maybe Trish at this point, she's a good worker, but she's not quite in her prime yet. Lita, however, I think Lita is underrated at this point because she's a far better wrestler than Trish. Because unlike Trish, who started off in fitness and then transitioned into wrestling,
Yeah.
Lita came up in wrestling. Like, she had been a fan the whole time, and then had legitimately trained as a wrestler for a number of years before she ever came to the WWF, and trained in Mexico. That's kind of how she got her Hurricane style and all that stuff, and some of that luchador style that she does. So she was a legitimate trained wrestler and could go. She just was a product of this era where women as wrestlers weren't quite given the same level of shine that they're given now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she was capable of more, just wasn't given the opportunity to do so. But ultimately, yeah, you do kind of have to pass on this one just because, one, they're not given enough time to cook, and they're also hurt by a completely dead crowd that is just worn out after the Rock Hogan match.
Oh yeah.
I think this match would have been, even if you only gave him 6 minutes, if you would have given him 6 minutes in the middle of the card before Rock Hogan, I think the crowd probably would have been much more into this.
Yeah.
And that would have helped this match much more. But placement plus short time, it's hard to go back and recommend anybody go back and watch it.
Or having a wrestler win in their own hometown. Or
plus the finish.
Yeah. All right. And this will take us to the main event.
The second main event.
Well, what Vince believes was the main event.
Main event with a lowercase m.
Yeah. Triple H making his return after sustaining that quad injury versus the undisputed world heavyweight champion Chris Jericho, who's accompanied by his business partner Stephanie McMahon. This match goes for 18 minutes and 41 seconds. Maria?
It was a personal and intense encounter. I am a fan of Jericho in this match. I'm rooting for Jericho. And I think we talk about Stephanie. We see her in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the storyline, I'm thinking that for the kayfabe, or like you'll like to talk about ring philosophy, is it?
Psychology,
sorry. That this is an interesting storyline.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird for me because she's saying that Triple H is her ex-husband at the time.
In kayfabe story, yes.
And she is now aligned with Jericho. So the storyline, I was like, I guess was there. The drama was there.
Mm-hmm.
And after watching this match, I actually have to say that when Triple H wins, and but it was super boring for me. It was a pass. And I think it also a pass for Jericho, who I've seen a few interviews about WrestleMania X-8 or 18. And he agrees that this shouldn't have been the main event either. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely understand why Jericho would feel that way. Just imagine Jericho and Triple H being backstage and hearing and watching the Rock Hogan match, hearing that crowd, and then thinking, we have to go on after that.
Yeah.
We are fucked.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything that we can do to win this crowd over or get them back if they don't have, especially you see how hyped they are for Rock Hogan, and then you hear how dead they are for the women. And maybe some part of your ego thinks, well, we're not the women. I'm Triple H and we're Jericho in this world title. We can get them back. But deep down, we got our work cut out for us. This is going to be a hard sell to get the crowd back invested for us. The only real hope that you have for it is really Triple H himself, because he still has some momentum from having returned from his quad tear the year before, which another historic Raw moment. If you go back, I don't remember the exact date on it, but I know it was an episode of Raw. But if you just go on YouTube and search Triple H returns Raw, you'll find it from sometime January 2002.
Or his quad tear?
Yeah, he tore. See, the year before, after WrestleMania 17, he had the match with Undertaker, and then that match, Stone Cold had turned heel. Following that, Triple H and Stone Cold had formed an alliance, and basically were just the two top heels in the company were just beating the crap out of everybody. And then in one match they had, I think it was with Jericho and Benoit in a tag match on Raw, Triple H tore his quad in a match, and it basically put him out for the rest of the year. I think the injury happened in like maybe April or May or something like that, but he was out for the rest of the year. And he returned.
Quad tear was ugly, right? Like,
it was. Oh yeah, he went into the ring to break up a pinfall, and you can see when he planted that leg, it just buckled right after that. He just completely tore his quad off the bone. So he was out for the rest of the year, and he came back in the beginning of 2002 in January prior to the Royal Rumble. But if you look it up and watch that segment on Raw, like Triple H returns 2002, and see that segment, it is one of the loudest pops you will ever hear. It was the last segment of the show, and the second that music hit of Motorhead's The Game, that crowd absolutely goes wild. Wow. And the energy that he comes out with, like, just that's one of those moments where the crowd feeds the performer, and he comes out just completely amped up with so much energy because, again, he's back. The crowd is completely over for him. And mind you, this is a guy that last time they saw him, he was a heel.
Right.
Heel. And that time away allowed fans to appreciate him, so that when he returned, he just was immediately a top babyface. So, and he rode that momentum from then on into WrestleMania. And kind of sad for Chris Jericho, because looking back on this, you can tell he does have the, on paper, the accolade of being the first ever undisputed champion, but really he was more or less a transitional champion, which is unfortunate for a wrestler of his caliber, of Chris Jericho's caliber, of his, he's a legend without question. For the time he's put in his career, for him to have remained relevant for as long as he has, from, again, WCW is where I first met him as Jericho, wrestling in the Cruiserweight division. As he was called the Lionheart Chris Jericho before he came to the WWF in 2000. He's had a long career, and he's managed to remain relevant throughout the entirety of it, which is very much kudos to him. So an accolade like this should mean something so much more, especially considering he won it at, I believe the pay-per-view at the end of 2001 was Armageddon, where he unified those titles. He beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the same night to win those belts. They had, because going into that pay-per-view, The Rock was the WCW champion, Stone Cold was the WWE champion, and Jericho beat both of them in back-to-back matches that same night to win those. That should mean something. That should be like a top accolade in your career. Like, I beat the two top names in the company in the same night to unify these belts, and then turned around and beat The Rock one-on-one at the Royal Rumble, and beat Stone Cold one-on-one at No Way Out to defend them.
Yeah.
And yet it meant absolutely nothing in the face of a returning Triple H and the momentum that he had. Nobody, like, he had it, and nobody, even through the entire run, nobody really took him serious as a champion. And that's such a shame, because he deserved so much better than what he got in this championship run that he had.
I agree with you. Did you overall enjoy this match? If we took out Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, would you have enjoyed this match?
Yeah, this is one of my borderline matches. Like, I wanted to like the match. I like Triple H. Triple H is one of my favorite wrestlers, and I like Jericho. Like Dre mentioned, I've been a fan of Jericho since I saw him as WCW, Lionheart, the Man of 1,001 Holds,
That was
the
Dean Malenko.
Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla.
Yeah, that was Jericho. 1,001 Holds was Dean Malenko.
But that's when you're right.
You're right.
1,000 holds, but he had one more
hold.
hold.
You're right. I stand corrected. Yeah, Dean Malenko was the Man of 1,000 holds. Jericho countered and said, "I'm the Man of 1,001 holds."
And then there was this promo that Jericho cuts where he's naming all the holds that he knows that he could put Dean Malenko in. And there's like one armbar. He names like armbar like 3 different times, and they're like, "You named armbar like 3." He's like, "Well, there's many different types of armbars. Do you not know that, Shivani?"
I'm a fan of Jericho, his ponytail and his scarf.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think the weird thing here with me is that I just couldn't grasp the concept of Triple H being a heel. I mean, a face.
Mhm.
That's what he was here. I've always known him as a heel, and I love him as a heel. And I know that everyone's like, "Oh, he's back," and you get that excitement, just like we have right now, like present day example, Randy Orton.
Mhm.
But Randy Orton does his best work when he's a heel, when he's the apex predator, when he's out there trying to do whatever it takes to get a title. And that's the same thing with Triple H when he's going out there trying to do his most to get to the title.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as this was a Triple H versus Jericho match on paper, this felt more like this was a Triple H versus Stephanie, and just Jericho just thrown in there along with them.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're 100% right about that, because most of the storyline as it played out was between Triple H and Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
And Jericho was more or less Stephanie's puppet throughout this feud, which again hurt Jericho in terms of his credibility as a champion, because he was doing the things in the ring. Granted, he was cheating to win, as heels do, but he was getting the wins regardless. And the matches were excellent, because Jericho at this time was a phenomenal performer in the ring. So he could put on a great match with anybody. And yet the crowd just never accepted it. Like, they could not accept Jericho. Like, in a company where you have Triple H, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, you're telling us Jericho is the champion.
right.
Chris Jericho is the champion. Fans were just like, no, we're not buying this.
Alternative, though, I'm just kind of curious.
What?
Who would have been your alternative
to Jericho?
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't. There really isn't anybody that I can think of as an alternative, because, like I said, ultimately, looking at it in retrospect, Jericho was just pretty much meant to be a transitional champion. I think behind the scenes they knew Triple H was about to come back. He was almost ready to return from his quad injury, if he wasn't already returned, and they were just waiting for the time to do it. Like, okay, we know you're ready to return. We're going to save it for the road to WrestleMania. Ride that wave all the way in. We don't want you beating The Rock or The Rock or Stone Cold or anybody like that for the title.
Mm-hmm.
So we need somebody to put in as a placeholder. So who do we have? Jericho. Jericho was more or less kind of almost like a sacrificial lamb. If they could have done anybody maybe in his place, maybe you could have done Kurt Angle. I think Kurt Angle maybe could have been another good alternative other than Jericho, who could have been the champion and seen as a credible champion, because Kurt Angle was already a champion before, so he had that credibility. But at that point, he wasn't in the position to do so. For some reason, they just chose not to have him come out of Armageddon the winner, because I believe it was Rock, Angle, Stone Cold, and Jericho in the matches at Armageddon, and they chose to go with Chris Jericho.
So with all that said, is this a rewatch for you?
No. Trey, you recommend people revisit this match?
I think if you watch it on mute, it's worth a rematch. It's worth a rewatch. And the only reason why I say that is because the match itself is good. It is a good match. Again, Triple H, Jericho, great workers. Even Stephanie McMahon plays her role well as on the outside, as being that scorned wife or ex-wife or what have you, being her in her villainous role. She plays that well. Yeah. It's just, if you watch it with sound, you hear just how dead the crowd is, and how much they really don't care for this match, and how much they're just worn out from The Rock Hogan. And I think that hurts the match. But just watching it on its own, it's a good match.
Okay.
So I'll put that caveat on it.
It's a rewatch with a caveat. So you have to.
Is it a rewatch for you?
No, I wanted to, but it's just like the thing I'm gonna pick on is that Triple H is an okay face. This wasn't pretty much about the only thing that Jericho had that Triple H wanted besides his wife was the titles, but it was more about Triple H and Stephanie as far as that feud went. You know, it didn't seem like Triple H was focused on that, and that's what I felt in storytelling and storyline wise, that you can't have that type of distraction when it's supposed to be about the titles that define the pinnacle of your industry or your brand or whatever you want to call it, your federation.
I will say Stephanie getting pedigreed and rolled out of the ring was my favorite part of this match, but this match is a pass for me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so we get one rewatch from Dre and 2 passes from us.
I will say though that if you're like us and you enjoy the details, be sure to check out our companion playlist for WrestleMania X-8 or 18 on YouTube. We put together some interviews with Jericho, and we also have that lead up to Rock and Hulk Hogan, which is pretty awesome. So check that out.
All right. So getting to wrap up here. So to recap this show, we got to go through our recommended matches. What are your recommended matches, Maria?
Match Edge with Booker T. I like that one. I liked our tag team. Didn't like the one with Billy and Chuck, but loved everybody else that was part of that tag team. APA, Farouk and Bradshaw, the Dudleys, and of course the main event, Rock defeating Hollywood Hulk Hogan in that singles match.
Dre?
Yeah, my recommendations for this would be Undertaker versus Ric Flair. That's worth a rewatch. The tag team championship match. That is a recommendation as well. Again, I also recommend the Undisputed Championship match, Jericho versus Triple H, as long as you watch it on mute. It's a great match on its own. And then, without question, the main event of The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Again, one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever.
And as for me, I think Firm but Fair. And there's many matches that you guys have that I probably would recommend it, but I'm just nitpicking. But to me, there's only one standout match that I feel I could recommend, like a new person to, like my wife, like herself, that if you are for some reason wanting to revisit WrestleMania X-8 and you're taking down this journey through WrestleMania's past, like she is, watch Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. It is the chef's kiss, as the young kids say. There's nothing else that us three can actually say that if you aren't convinced to watch it, then I don't know who's going to be able to convince you to watch it. But please do yourself a favor as a wrestling fan, whether you're a seasoned veteran like Dre and myself, or Mark in training as my wife. Go ahead and watch this match. It's one of the best WrestleMania matches to date. And thank you for letting me know that I'm hip and cool, Caleb. Now, WrestleMania X-8 had a card stack with marquee matchups, which should have been the main event. Featured a Clash of Titans. The immortal Hulk Hogan faced off against The Rock in a contest that transcended generations.
The undercard was no less spectacular, with iconic bouts such as Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall, Ric Flair versus The Undertaker in a no DQ match, and the high-flying encounter between RVD versus William Regal for the Intercontinental Championship. The event showcased the evolving landscape of WWE, blending established legends with emerging stars.
And before we go off here, Dre, do you have anything for our viewers or listeners, and if they want to reach out and hear Dre, listen to Dre's thoughts, read your thoughts about wrestling or anything else?
The final thoughts I would have about this is, again, I echo everything y'all said with this about this WrestleMania. This WrestleMania 18 represents the last true attitude era WrestleMania. I know some people like to say that the one that follows this 19 was kind of the last hurrah of it in terms of some of the matches, but the last WrestleMania that was really true, full-on attitude era WrestleMania was this one in WrestleMania 18. And it shows throughout the card itself and what we seen through it. A little side note, post WrestleMania side note, is after this match, we also see one of the most hot shot title change eras possibly in the history of WWE, given that at this WrestleMania, the title changed from Jericho to Triple H. The very next pay-per-view, Backlash, Triple H lost the title to Hulk Hogan in a match in April. Then in May at Judgment Day, Hulk Hogan lost the title to The Undertaker in a match. And then in July, The Undertaker lost the title to The Rock in a triple threat match with him and Kurt Angle. So, yeah, after this one, they were just passing that undisputed title around like hot potato.
Wow.
Which was rather funny before and obviously The Rock, as much as I talked about Jericho being a bit of a transitional champion going into this one, The Rock in July served as a transitional champion because by that point, we were in full on Brock Lesnar mode in terms of his push, his skyrocket push to the top, because he debuted, I believe, the night after this WrestleMania. The very next night on Raw, we saw the debut of Brock Lesnar, who y'all will talk about in the next WrestleMania. But yeah, other than that, I appreciate you guys having me on. Again, this is, among all the WrestleManias, this was one of my favorite ones, and I had mentioned that to Carlos beforehand, that if there was one that I wanted to absolutely be on, it was this one. And I know y'all had someone intended beforehand. I'm grateful that that person was unable to make it, which freed me up to sit in on this one. Because again, like I said, this is one of my favorite WrestleManias. So I greatly enjoyed talking about it with y'all. I thank y'all for having me on. If anybody wants to hear my ramblings or any thoughts that I have about wrestling, y'all can always find me on Podcast Championship Wrestling. That's a show that I co-host with my friends Doyle and Wayne, who have been on prior episodes of Revisiting the Mania. We talk about current events within WWE, as well as touching on AEW and other promotions as well. We always have a show where we preview the upcoming WWE PLE, as well as a post PLE show where we recap it and give our thoughts about that, as well as discussing, again, news and other things. And you can find us anywhere that you get your podcast. That's Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you can find us.
Awesome. Yeah. And with that, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to our channel and stay connected with all things WrestleMania. Stay tuned for more exciting content coming your way. We have our thoughts on the Iron Claw movie that we saw yesterday. That's going to be pre-recorded in advance, and we'll upload it next Saturday because we'll be taking the week off to relax, decompress, and come back at you live and ready to go and entertain you next Saturday, 2 weeks from now, Saturday, on January 6th, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. with our WrestleMania X-9 revisit with your co-host, Dre, Wayne from Podcast Championship Wrestling.
Oh, Wayne got 19.
Yeah.
Nice. Again, that's another great WrestleMania, especially that main event. We talked about Kurt Angle being a bit underappreciated on going into this one. Yep, he gets his appreciation in that one. That's
can't wait.
Prime Kurt Angle, in my opinion.
Be sure to watch and interact with us. Hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to us on audio version, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you very much for today and watching us tonight or listening. I'll upload this on Monday, and have a great day, night, whatever. Peace. Happy holidays.